Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly invested in you? Not money spent to escape, not distractions, not comfort that fades by morning. I mean, a real investment. The kind that builds clarity when your mind feels scattered. The kind that creates strength when life pushes back. Because here's the truth most people avoid. Clarity doesn't arrive by accident. Strength doesn't show up when you feel ready. And no one is coming to hand you the life you keep postponing. The moment you stop drifting is the moment your power comes back. Most people think power comes from force, money, or position, but that's not where it starts. Power starts with clarity. And when clarity is missing, even the most capable person feels weak, scattered, and exhausted. You can have talent, opportunities, and resources, yet still feel stuck because your mind is pulling you in 10 different directions at once. That internal noise drains more energy than hard work ever will. Confusion is costly. It steals focus. It delays decisions. It turns simple steps into overwhelming tasks. And over time, it convinces you that you're tired when the truth is you're just unclear. Clarity is what simplifies life. When you're clear, you don't need motivation. You don't need permission. You don't need to be pushed. You move because you know where you're going. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most powerful. You weren't guessing. You weren't doubting every step. You knew what mattered and you acted on it. That's clarity in action. And the good news is clarity is not reserved for a lucky few. It's a skill. It's a decision. It's something you build by, asking better questions and refusing to live in mental chaos. Most people avoid clarity because clarity demands responsibility. The moment you're clear, excuses disappear. You can't blame circumstances when you know exactly what needs to be done. So instead, people stay busy. They stay distracted. They confuse motion with progress. But being busy without clarity is like running full speed in the wrong direction. You end up tired, frustrated, and nowhere near the life you want. Clarity begins when you decide what you stand for, not what sounds good, not what impresses others, what truly matters to you. Your values are your internal compass. Without them, you react to everything. With them, you respond intentionally. When you know your values, decisions become simpler. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop saying yes to things that don't align with who you're becoming. And clarity also means knowing what you want. And just as importantly, what you don't want. Most people spend more time planning vacations than designing their lives. They have vague hopes instead of clear targets. But the brain doesn't move toward vagueness. It moves toward specificity. The clearer the target, the stronger the pull. When your goals are clear, your actions align automatically. You don't need willpower, you need direction. But here's the part most people miss. Clarity isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. You can know what you want and still feel stuck if your emotional state is weak. That's why clarity requires you to manage your focus. Whatever you focus on consistently becomes your reality. If you focus on problems, you feel powerless. If you focus on possibilities, you feel resourceful. Same life, different lens. Clarity comes from choosing what you give meaning to. Ask yourself this, what are you repeatedly focusing on that's draining your energy? Old stories, past failures, other people's opinions. None of those deserve permanent residence in your mind. Clarity requires mental discipline. It means you choose empowering questions over disempowering ones. Not why does this always happen to me, but what can I learn from this right now? That shift alone can restore your sense of control. And once clarity starts to form, something incredible happens. Strength follows. Because when you know your why, your how becomes flexible. You can endure discomfort when you understand its purpose. You can push through resistance when you know it's leading somewhere meaningful. Strength isn't about never feeling doubt. It's about acting in alignment, even when doubt shows up. Clarity also sharpens your standards. You stop tolerating inconsistency in yourself. You stop lowering expectations to match your mood. You raise the bar because you finally see what's possible. And when your standards rise, your identity begins to change. You no longer ask, can I do this? You ask, what's required? That's the mindset of someone stepping into their power. Let me tell you something important. Clarity doesn't come from waiting. It comes from engagement, from action, from feedback. You get clearer by moving, adjusting, refining. Perfection is not clarity. It's procrastination disguised as preparation. The moment you commit to a direction, even imperfectly, your mind organizes itself around that commitment. Momentum creates clarity faster than thinking ever will. And clarity must be reinforced daily, through rituals, through reflection, through choosing your inputs carefully. What you read, watch, listen to, and allow into your mind is shaping your internal environment. If you want clarity, you must protect it. That means guarding your energy, your focus, and your time like the assets they are. You don't need more information. You need better filters. When clarity becomes part of how you live, strength becomes inevitable. You trust yourself. You follow through. You show up differently. And life responds differently to someone who moves with certainty. Opportunities recognize clarity. People respect it. And challenges no longer intimidate you. They inform you. So decide today to end the fog. Decide to ask the hard questions. Decide to align your focus, your values, and your actions. Because the moment your mind becomes clear, your power comes back. Most people are chasing returns in the wrong places. They look for quick wins, shortcuts, external validation, or opportunities that promise fast results. But the highest return on investment you will ever experience will never come from the outside world. It comes from what you build inside yourself. Because markets change, circumstances shift, people leave, but the skills, mindset, discipline, and identity you invest in stay with you for life. That's why self-investment isn't optional, it's foundational. Think about this for a moment. Everything you want in life, freedom, confidence, stability, impact, must be delivered through you. If you're the vehicle, then upgrading the vehicle makes sense. Yet most people spend more time maintaining their phones, their cars, and their social image than maintaining their own energy, focus, and growth. And then they wonder why life feels heavy. You can't expect extraordinary results from an underdeveloped inner system. Self-investment starts with the way you treat your body. Energy is currency. If you're tired, unfocused, or depleted, everything feels harder than it needs to be. Strength begins when you respect your physical state enough to fuel it, move it, and challenge it. Not for appearance, but for capacity. Why? When your body is strong, your mind follows. When your energy rises, your standards rise with it. And when your standards rise, your choices improve. But physical strength alone isn't enough. You must invest in your mind, your beliefs, your patterns, your emotional conditioning. This is where most people either build power or give it away. If you don't intentionally upgrade your thinking, you will unconsciously repeat the past. Old stories will run your decisions. Fear will negotiate your actions. Doubt will disguise itself as logic. Self-investment means challenging the thoughts that limit you and reinforcing the ones that expand you. Ask yourself this: what beliefs are you practicing daily without realizing it? Because beliefs are practiced through repetition, not intention. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're behind, unlucky, or not enough, your nervous system accepts that as truth. But when you invest time into learning, reflection, and mental conditioning, you begin to replace survival thinking with growth thinking. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what will this make me capable of? And then there's skill. Skills create leverage. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations, it comes from competence. The more capable you become, the less you need approval. When you invest in learning how to communicate, lead, adapt, and solve problems, you increase your value in every environment. Skills give you options, and options reduce fear. A person with options walks differently, speaks differently, and decides differently. Yet self-investment isn't just about what you add, it's also about what you remove. You must stop investing in habits that drain you. Overthinking, procrastination, constant comparison, emotional chaos. Every time you entertain these patterns, you're making a withdrawal from your future. Self-investment requires honesty. You have to be willing to look at where your time, energy, and attention are leaking and close those gaps. One of the most powerful investments you can make is in discipline. Not punishment, not rigidity. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's doing what aligns with your future even when the present negotiates for comfort. Every small act of discipline compounds into self-trust, and self-trust is strength. When you know you will follow through, fear loses its grip. You stop needing motivation because you've built reliability within yourself. And understand this, self-investment is not selfish. When you grow, everyone around you benefits. Your relationships improve because you bring clarity instead of confusion. Your work improves because you bring focus instead of force. Your leadership improves because people can feel your certainty. The more you invest in yourself, the more you have to give without depletion. Most people delay self-investment because they think they need more time, more money, or more certainty. But the truth is, you start with what you have: 5 minutes of focused learning, one uncomfortable conversation, one commitment kept, one habit changed. Small investments made consistently create massive returns. Compounding works the same in personal growth as it does in finance, except the returns are permanent. And here's the shift that changes everything. You don't wait to feel worthy before investing in yourself. You invest and worthiness follows. Confide, NCE is not the cause, it's the result. Strength is not something you're born with. It's something you build by choosing growth over comfort repeatedly. So make the decision today to become your greatest asset. Invest in your body, invest in your mind, invest in your skills, invest in your discipline, because the more you build yourself, the less life can shake you. And when the world becomes uncertain, you become the certainty. Most people think strength is forged in dramatic moments, when everything is on the line, when pressure is high, when the world is watching. But that's not where real strength is built. Real strength is built quietly, invisibly, in the daily decisions you make when no one is applauding you, when no one is checking, when quitting would be easy and comfortable. Strength isn't created in intensity alone, it's created in consistency. Every single day, life presents you with small choices. Do you follow through or do you delay? Do you speak up or stay silent? Do you move your body or negotiate with fatigue? Do you focus on what matters or drift into distraction? These moments don't feel heroic, but they are shaping your identity, and your identity is your destiny in motion. Most people underestimate the power of these small decisions because they don't feel significant in the moment. Skipping one habit doesn't feel like failure. Avoiding one uncomfortable action doesn't feel like weakness. But repeated daily, these choices compound, and over time they either build inner strength or quietly erode it. You don't wake up one day suddenly strong or suddenly weak. You wake up as the sum total of what you've been practicing. Strength is the ability to do what aligns with your future, even when your present emotions resist. And emotions are loud. They will argue for comfort. They will rationalize delay. They will dress fear up as logic. But strength listens and still chooses action, not forcefully, not aggressively, calmly, consistently. Think about this. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you deposit trust into your own identity. Every time you break one, you withdraw from it. Over time, people who feel strong are simply people who trust themselves. They know that when they decide something, they will act. That trust doesn't come from motivation, it comes from repetition. And this is why daily structure matters, not rigid rules, but intentional routines. When you remove decision fatigue, you conserve energy for what matters. When you decide in advance how you will act, emotions lose their power to hijack your day. Strength grows in environments that support it. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Most people wait to feel strong before acting, but strength follows action, not the other way around. You don't build courage by waiting for confidence. You build confidence by acting before you feel ready. The body moves first. The mind catches up. Action creates evidence, and evidence reshapes belief. And let's be honest, this isn't about perfection. Strength doesn't mean you never miss a day. It means you don't miss twice. It means you return faster. It means you don't turn one slip into a story about who you are. Strong people don't waste energy on self-judgment. They redirect it into recommitment. Daily strength is also about restraint, knowing when to stop, when to say no, when to protect your energy instead of proving yourself. Not every battle deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your response. Strength is knowing where your energy produces the highest return and placing it there intentionally. And here's something critical. Strength grows when discomfort becomes familiar, not enjoyable, but familiar. When you repeatedly step into discomfort and survive it, your nervous system learns that you are safe in challenge. That's when fear stops controlling you. You don't eliminate fear, you outgrow its authority. Most people avoid discomfort because they think it will break them, but avoidance weakens you far faster than effort ever could. Effort builds muscle, resistance builds resilience, and every day you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, you train your mind to stay steady under pressure. Strength is also built through focus. What you give your attention to shapes your emotional state. If you start your day consuming chaos, comparison, and negativity, you are training weakness. But when you start your day with intention, with movement, learning, reflection, you are setting a tone your mind follows. Mornings matter, evenings matter. The edges of your day shape the core. And let's talk about patience. Strength is not urgency, it's endurance. It's the willingness to play the long game without needing constant validation. Strong people don't panic when results are slow. They trust the process because they trust themselves. They know growth is happening beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Daily strength also means taking ownership. No blaming, no waiting, no outsourcing responsibility for how you feel, think, or act. Ownership is power. The moment you say, this is mine to handle, your posture changes, your voice changes, your decisions change. You stop being at the mercy of circumstances and start shaping them. And the most powerful part, strength becomes your identity. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? and start asking, who am I becoming if I do or don't do this? That question alone elevates behavior, because identity-based decisions are stronger than emotion-based ones. Over time, these daily decisions do something extraordinary. They simplify life. You waste less energy negotiating with yourself. You experience less inner conflict. You move with calm certainty. And challenges no longer feel like threats. They feel like tests you're prepared for. So don't wait for a defining moment to prove your strength. Build it quietly today, in the small decisions, in the disciplined follow-through, in choosing alignment over ease, because that's how strength becomes permanent. Most people don't realize that their life is not shaped by their desires. It's shaped by their standards. You don't get what you want, you get what you tolerate. And that one distinction explains why some people keep repeating the same struggles year after year, while others rise, adapt, and expand, no matter what life throws at them. Standards are the invisible rules you live by. They determine how you treat yourself, what you accept from others, and how you respond when things get difficult. A standard is not a goal. A goal is something you aim for. A standard is something you live by. When something becomes a standard, it's no longer up for negotiation. You don't debate it. You don't rationalize your way out of it. You simply act in alignment. That's why standards are so powerful. They remove decision fatigue and emotional bargaining. They create consistency, and consistency creates results. Most people have strong preferences, not strong standards. They prefer to be disciplined. They prefer to be confident. They prefer to be focused. But when pressure shows up, preferences disappear. Standards don't. A person with high standards doesn't ask, do I feel like doing this today? They ask, is this who I am? And that shift changes everything. Your standards are formed by what you repeatedly accept. If you accept low energy, chaos, disrespect, procrastination, or excuses from yourself, you are training your nervous system to believe that's normal. And once something feels normal, it feels safe, even if it's painful. That's why people stay stuck in patterns they say they hate. They've normalized them. Raising your standards means interrupting what feels familiar and choosing what feels aligned. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. Raising your standards will initially make you uncomfortable because the old version of you was built to survive at a lower level. When you raise the bar, your identity has to stretch to meet it, and the mind resists that stretch. It will tell you you're asking for too much, that you're being unrealistic, that you should slow down. That's not intuition, that's conditioning. When you decide that certain behaviors are no longer acceptable, skipping commitments, speaking negatively about yourself, tolerating environments that drain you, you reclaim power instantly. Not because life changes overnight, but because you do. Your posture changes, your decisions sharpen, your time becomes more intentional, and life responds differently to someone who knows what they will and want to accept. High standards don't make life harder, they make it cleaner. Less drama, less confusion, less internal conflict. You stop arguing with yourself because the rules are clear. You stop explaining yourself because your actions speak. You stop settling because settling violates who you've decided to become. And standards aren't about being harsh or rigid. They're about respect, self-respect. When you respect yourself, you don't abandon yourself for temporary comfort. You don't betray your future to satisfy a moment. You act in ways that protect your energy, your focus, and your direction. That's not pressure, that's alignment. Look at every area of your life where you feel frustrated. There is a standard there, either one you've consciously chosen or one you've unconsciously accepted. If your health feels off, there's a standard around movement, nutrition, or rest that needs to rise. If your relationships feel draining, there's a standard around communication or boundaries that needs clarity. If your work feels stagnant, there's a standard around growth or excellence that's been compromised. Raising your standards doesn't mean demanding perfection. It means demanding honesty. It means refusing to lie to yourself about what's required. Strong standards are flexible in strategy, but firm in principle. You adapt how you move forward, but you don't lower where you're going. And here's something critical. Your standards teach people how to treat you, not through words, but through consistency. When you consistently show up with integrity, discipline, and clarity, people adjust. Some rise to meet you, some fall away. Both outcomes are necessary. You can't elevate your life and keep every connection at the same level. Growth requires recalibration. Most people fear raising their standards because they're afraid of losing comfort, approval, or familiarity. But the cost of low standards is far greater. T's paid in regret, resentment, and unrealized potential, and deep down you know it. That quiet dissatisfaction you feel isn't because you're incapable, it's because you're outgrowing the rules you've been living by. When standards rise, identity follows. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who lives with intention. You don't chase confidence, you embody it. You don't seek motivation, you operate from principle. And that internal shift changes how you experience everything. And let me make this clear. You don't raise standards all at once. You raise them deliberately. One decision, one boundary, one commitment honored, one behavior upgraded. Each time you do, you reinforce a new identity. And identity is the most powerful force shaping human behavior. So decide today what you will no longer tolerate. From your habits, your thinking, your environment. Decide what becomes non-negotiable, because the moment you raise your standards, your destiny starts rising to meet you. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. They see it as something to escape, something to numb, something to blame. But pain itself is not the enemy. Pain is information. Pain is feedback. And whether it becomes a prison or a teacher depends entirely on how you choose to use it. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of discomfort is carrying a message, and ignoring that message is what keeps people stuck. Pain becomes a prison when you personalize it. When you say, this happened because something is wrong with me, or this is just my life, you lock yourself inside the experience. You relive it. You replay it. You let it define you. And of our time, that pain stops being a moment and becomes an identity. Not because it had power, but because you gave it meaning that worked against you. But pain becomes a teacher the moment you get curious instead of defensive. The moment you ask, what is this trying to show me, instead of why is this happening to me? That single shift changes your posture. You move from victim to student, and students grow. Victims stay frozen. Every strong person you admire didn't avoid pain. They used it. They learned from rejection. They refined themselves through failure. They built clarity through confusion. The difference wasn't the absence of hardship. It was the willingness to extract value from it. Pain, when processed correctly, sharpens awareness. It exposes patterns. It reveals what no longer works. And that awareness is the doorway to strength. Most people stay stuck not because pain is too intense, but because they keep numbing it instead of integrating it. Distractions, addictions, overworking, constant noise. These are not solutions. They are delays. And what you delay, you repeat. Pain that isn't learned from returns, often louder and more demanding than before. Using pain as a teacher requires honesty. You have to be willing to look at your role without self-attack. Not blame, responsibility. Responsibility is empowering. It says, if I played a part, I can play a new part. And that realization is freedom. Because the moment you see how you contributed to an outcome, you also see how you can change it. Pain also exposes your standards, what you tolerate emotionally, what you accept relationally, what you avoid internally. If a situation keeps hurting you, it's pointing to a boundary that hasn't been set, a truth that hasn't been spoken, or a decision that's been postponed. Pain keeps knocking until you listen. And let's talk about emotional pain, because this is where most people lose momentum. Physical pain heals. Emotional pain lingers if you let it, but emotional pain doesn't need to harden you or close you off. When processed correctly, it deepens you, it builds empathy, it sharpens intuition, it strengthens discernment. The goal is not to eliminate pain. The goal is to become resilient enough to move through it without losing yourself. Pain becomes a prison when you keep asking the past to give you answers it can't. Replaying old moments doesn't create clarity, it creates stagnation. The lesson is never in reliving the pain, it's in extracting the meaning and moving forward with that knowledge. Strong people honor the lesson without living in the memory. And understand this, growth often feels like loss before it feels like expansion. When you outgrow a version of yourself, there is grief. When you release an identity, there is discomfort. But that discomfort is not a signal to retreat. It's confirmation that change is happening. Pain is often the sound of old limits breaking. Most people fear pain because they believe it will overwhelm them. But the truth is, what overwhelms you is resistance, not pain itself. When you allow yourself to feel without judgment, pain moves through faster. When you fight it, suppress it, or deny it, it stays. Strength is not the absence of feeling. It's the capacity to feel fully and still move forward. Using pain as fuel doesn't mean glorifying struggle. It means honoring its purpose. It means letting hardship refine your focus instead of fracturing it. Pain can either narrow your world or clarify it, and clarity is power. And here's the most important shift. Pain does not mean you're failing. It often means you're evolving. Comfort is familiar. Growth is disruptive. If you are uncomfortable, it may be because you are shedding an old identity that can no longer carry you where you're going. So the next time pain shows up, don't run from it. Don't dramatize it. Don't build a home inside. Ask better questions. Listen closely. Extract the lesson. Then use that lesson to move forward stronger, wiser, and more grounded than before. Because when pain becomes a teacher, it loses its power to imprison you. Whether you realize it or not, you are training yourself every single day. Your mind, your emotions, your identity, they are being shaped by repetition. Not by what you intend, not by what you hope, but by what you consistently reinforce, what you think about, what you focus on, what you say to yourself, what you do when it's uncomfortable. These patterns are carving a direction for your life right now. And the most powerful truth is this: you become what you repeatedly reinforce. Most people believe their future is determined by a few big decisions, but it's not. It's determined by small, repeated behaviors that feel insignificant in the moment. The way you talk to yourself when something goes wrong, the way you respond to pressure, the way you start your mornings and end your nights. These are not neutral moments, they are conditioning moments. And over time, they hardwire who you are becoming. Your inner dialogue matters more than you think. The voice you listen to most is your own, and that voice is either building you or breaking you down. If you constantly reinforce doubt, scarcity, or self-criticism, your nervous system adapts to that frequency. It starts to feel normal. And once something feels normal, it feels true, even if it's limiting. But when you consciously choose empowering language, focused questions, and constructive interpretations, you begin to rewire your emotional state. You don't fake positivity, you train perspective. Reinforcement happens through emotion. Whatever you attach strong emotion to becomes memorable, repeatable, and influential. If you emotionally rehearse failure, fear grows. If you emotionally rehearse possibility, courage expands. This is why focus is everything. The mind moves toward what you consistently emphasize. You can't reinforce confidence and constantly dwell on worst-case scenarios at the same time. One will dominate. Your habits are another form of reinforcement. Every habit is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you repeatedly act in alignment with discipline, clarity, and growth, your identity shifts naturally. You stop trying to be strong. You see yourself as strong. And identity-based change is permanent. Once you believe this is who I am, behavior follows with far less effort. But here's where most people sabotage themselves: inconsistency. They reinforce growth one day and reinforce limitation the next. They wonder why they feel unstable, why confidence comes and goes. Confidence isn't built in intensity, it's built in consistency. You don't need massive actions. You need repeated alignment, small daily reinforcements, compound faster than occasional breakthroughs. Reinforcement also comes from your environment. What you surround yourself with, conversations, media, people, information, is shaping you. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, comparison, distraction, you are training your mind to scatter. But when you curate your inputs, when you protect your focus, when you choose environments that challenge and elevate you, reinforcement works in your favor. You don't rise by accident, you rise by design. And let's talk about emotional reinforcement. How you respond emotionally to success and failure teaches your nervous system what to expect. If you punish yourself for mistakes, you train fear. If you learn from them and recommit, you train resilience. Strong people don't avoid failure. They reinforce growth-oriented responses to it. That's why setbacks don't stop them. Their system has been trained to recover quickly. What you practice under pressure matters most. Anyone can feel focused when things are easy. But how do you reinforce yourself when life pushes back? Do you reinforce helplessness or resourcefulness? Do you reinforce blame or ownership? Those moments are shaping your future reactions. Pressure doesn't change you. It reveals what you've been practicing. Reinforcement is also about identity language. Saying I'm trying reinforces hesitation. Saying I don't have time reinforces powerlessness. Words are not harmless, they are instructions to your nervous system. When you shift language, you shift state. When you shift state, behavior changes, and behavior repeated becomes identity. Most people wait for evidence before they reinforce belief. Strong people reverse the order. They reinforce belief through action, and evidence follows. You don't wait to feel confident to act. You act in alignment, and confidence grows. You don't wait to feel disciplined. You practice discipline, and identity solidifies. Reinforcement precedes transformation. And here's the deeper layer. Reinforcement determines what you see. Your brain is a filtering system. It looks for evidence that supports what you already believe. When you reinforce limitation, you notice obstacles. When you reinforce growth, you notice opportunities. Same world, different filter. And that filter shapes your reality. This is why daily rituals matter. Reflection, movement, learning, intention. These are not productivity tools. They are reinforcement tools. They remind your system who you are and where you're going. Without reinforcement, even the clearest vision fades. With reinforcement, momentum becomes inevitable. So ask yourself this honestly: what are you reinforcing right now without realizing it? The answer will explain your current results. And the moment you change what you reinforce, your focus, your habits, your self-talk, you change the direction of your life, because you don't drift into strength. You don't stumble into clarity. You train for it daily, relentlessly, until the person you are becoming is no longer optional, but inevitable.